A very good morning to you, all of you students. We are going to start with the very interesting subject, social science. And social science will be having a different parts, as if like history, geography, civics. All the parts we are going to cover it through online mode. You do not need to worry. Everything will be explained. Yes. So from today we are going to have the very first chapter, that is arrival of the Europeans in India. We are going to learn about this chapter. We are going to understand this chapter, what this chapter is telling to us. I hope you all will be very much attentive in this chapter, so that you will be knowing how the history, you will be knowing the history part of it. Right? We'll start with this chapter now. As we have the PDF format of the textbook over here. If you have the textbook, it is also good. If you don't have the textbook, you can download the PDF from the online mode through internet. The first chapter, arrival of Europeans in India. We have learnt in the previous standard that many years ago, our country was one of the leading countries in the world. Our country was distinct in the whole world. That we all know that India was one of the finest countries among the world. It was a distinct country. What do you mean by distinct? That means different from another. It was literally a different country from another country. The people of various countries were being influenced by our culture and prosperity. That means everyone was praising our culture and prosperity, that how India is prosperous, how India is rich. Many people worldwide were eager to enter into trade with our country and earn wealth out of it. So many people outside the countries also were very much eager to do business, were very much eager to do trade activities with us. Why? Because we had a lot of amount of wealth with us. Earlier, the merchants from the various countries came to India from northwest by land route for the purpose of trading. I told you that different merchants, now they came to know that as India was a popular and rich and a prosperous country, they came for trading in India. For years, the Arab traders undertook trade through land route, but as situations changed, trade through land route stopped. Consequently, the demand for Indian commodities, like the different Indian commodities were there. That means like silk, cotton cloths, muslin. What do you mean by muslin? Muslin is a thin cotton cloth, right? Is a type of cloth. Black pepper and spices, etc. increased in the European countries. To take the advantage of this situation, many countries of Europe started searching for a sea route to India. So as we all know that the merchants from different countries came from northwest by the land route, and what was their purpose? Their purpose was for trading in India. But as situations changed, the land route stopped and they had to come through sea route. They chose option for the sea route to India. Why? Because they wanted to trade with us. And consequently, we all know the different Indian commodities like silk, cotton cloths, muslin I told you, a thin cloth it is, black pepper. This demand increased in the European countries. So they felt that India is really a very prosperous country in the world. Okay, students, now we are going to start about the different sailors, right? We have told that we by sea route they are going to discover the new sea route to India, right? So now the first adventure explorer is Christopher Columbus. We all know, in the general knowledge or wherever it has been clearly given that Christopher Columbus has discovered America, right? But he was in search for a new sea route to India. We'll just see in the paragraph that what it's going to say about it. Columbus, an Italian explorer, was one of the brave sailors who ventured out to find out the new sea route to India. He was an Italian explorer and was one of the brave sailors. He was very brave, who ventured out. What do you mean by ventured? That means he was very risk taking. He wanted to take risk in the, as if we take risk and if it succeeds, then it is profitable, right? So at the same point of time, Columbus also, he was very much brave and he took risk to discover the new sea route to India. He thought that one can go to east via west also. Why did he believe so? Yes, come on students, we will have one question mark in our mind, that why did he believe so? Why did he believe that one can go to west via west? The answer we can get, that is because he knew that the world is round, and realized by saying that going to east via west, as the other explorer did, can reach to its destination. That means if the world is round and if you can go and if you can explore from east to west, a explorer can reach to its destination. So he was very much conformed to it, that he wanted to discover a new sea route to India. Think about it. Columbus started his journey to India and accidentally reached America. That means, you see, he has started his journey to India. He wanted to discover the new sea route to India, but he reached America. As long as he lived, he was under the misconception that he had discovered the sea route to India. That means he was having a misconception. What do you mean by misconception? He was having a wrong idea. He was having a wrong idea that he had discovered the sea route to India. Hence, even today, the natives of America are called Red Indians, and the island group in the Caribbean is known as the West Indies. So we all know that today in the natives of America who are living there, they are called as the Red Indians. And because Columbus had accidentally reached America, he was in a search to sea route to India, right? That's why here it is clearly stated in the paragraph that he was under the misconception that he had discovered the sea route to India. He was having a wrong idea that he had discovered the sea route to India, but accidentally where he reached? He reached to America. Now we are going to just see about a PPT, PowerPoint presentation of Christopher Columbus. The same thing is a quick revision we are going to do it about it. Okay students, here you can see Christopher Columbus, how he was looking. You see, he was looking a brave man, right? And he wanted to explore a new sea route to India. Here is the quick revision of here, that he was an Italian explorer. The second point, in the year 1492, he made the first attempt at finding the sea route to India. You can just see that in the year 1492, he made the first attempt. He started his journey to come to India, but coincidentally he reached America. I told you, right, that he had an idea of going to discover the new sea route to India, but accidentally he reached America. He considered himself to be the discoverer of India. That means, I told you, he was under the misconception, right? He was under the misconception. He was having a wrong idea that he has discovered, but actually he had not discovered India. He had discovered America. Why? Because he reached America. and therefore the inhabitants of America are called as Red Indians, and the island group in the Caribbean is known as the West Indies, right? You can just see very much clearly how Christopher Columbus had a very passionate about to discover the new sea route to India, but accidentally he had reached America. Now after Christopher Columbus, we had the second explorer, Vasco da Gama. Vasco da Gama, a native of Portugal, discovered the sea route to India. Everybody had discovered the sea route to India, right? He encircled the Cape of Good Hope. He had encircled it. He had made a big circle over it, and had discovered the sea route to India, and also he encircled the Cape of Good Hope in South Africa and reached the port of Calicut. That means he was going through the Cape of Good Hope and had reached the port of Calicut on 22nd May 1498 after crossing the Indian Ocean. Then the ruling king of Calicut, Zamorin, gave permission to the Portuguese to trade. So when he came, Vasco da Gama, at that time he was a ruling king. The ruling king was, at that time, ruling king of Calicut was King Zamorin. He gave the permission to Portuguese to trade. That means now he gave the permission for the Portuguese to trade into India, to do the business into India. The Portuguese established a fort in Calicut for trade in 1500 CE. They fortified it and appointed a commander-in-chief, namely Albuquerque, to safeguard the fort. Moving towards, Albuquerque conquered Goa in 1506 CE. Albuquerque is a city in New Mexico, right? So he had conquered Goa in 1506 CE. Within a span of 100 years, the Portuguese took control of Mangalore, Cochin, Goa, Diu, Mumbai, and island of Sri Lanka. So slow by slow, the Portuguese had a control. He took the powers of Mangalore, Cochin, Goa, Diu, Mumbai, and island of Sri Lanka. So that was one of the biggest thing that the Portuguese had traded, and they took the control over the different states, Mangalore, Cochin, Goa, Diu, Mumbai, and island of Sri Lanka. We'll also see the PowerPoint presentation of Vasco da Gama, how he was looking, how they had done. Have a quick look over it. Okay students, you have on the screen Vasco da Gama. You can just see how brave he was looking. Vasco da Gama discovered a new sea route to India. He encircled the Cape of Good Hope in South Africa and reached the port of Calicut on 22nd May 1498. We all know that he was a very much brave person, and he went to discover the new sea route to India, but accidentally he came where? He came to America. Then the ruling king of Calicut gave the permission to the Portuguese to trade, and we all know that who was the ruling king of that time. The King Zamorin was the ruling king. So we can just see that Vasco da Gama, he was a very much powerful and a brave and a challenging explorer. Yes, so we can have a look over here of the PPT of Vasco da Gama. Okay students, now after the Vasco da Gama, we are going to see how the Portuguese rule came to an end, right? Because we all know Vasco da Gama came and he was given the permission. King Zamorin gave the permission to the Portuguese to trade into India, and then many years they had ruled, and so at the point of time, one certain day had come to for the end of Portuguese rule in India. In the beginning of the 17th century, the Portuguese expanded their trade to Bengal. At this time, the Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan ruled India from Delhi. Shah Jahan was, I think so, he was one of the 5th Mughal Emperor. Yes, he was the 5th Mughal Emperor and he ruled India from Delhi. The Zubedar of Bengal complained to Shah Jahan about the behavior of the Portuguese. The Zubedar, he had complained to the Bengal that the Portuguese are very much rude in their behavior. Rude in their behavior, that means they are not having a polite behavior. They are very much having a rude behavior. Thus, the fort of Hooghly was demolished and the ships were burnt as per the order of emperor. In this way, Portuguese rule came to an end with the exception of territories of Diu, Daman and Goa. Yes, we all know that except the territories, the union territories Diu, Daman and Goa, the Portuguese rule came to an end. That means it came to an end to Mangalore or Cochin and Mumbai and the island of Sri Lanka. Yes, it came to an end. The Portuguese rule came to an end to this different states, but exception was there for the Diu, Daman and Goa. Still Diu, Daman and Goa exist. The Portuguese people are there, right? So basically there was an end of Portuguese rule of Diu, Daman and Goa. We can just have a look of the PowerPoint presentation of this figure, end of the Portuguese rule. You can just see how they had made a banners, how they were having a lot of amount because the Portuguese ruled over India, right? Because they were having permission to trade into India and they had a very much big rude behavior towards the Indians also. So they had very much a control over the Indians. So the Indians was not liking about this. So that was so this thing they demolished the fort of Hooghly and the ships were burnt, and in order that emperor in this way, like that, the Portuguese rule came to an end. We'll just have a look of PPT. Okay, students, you can see over here in the PowerPoint presentation the end of the Portuguese rule. You can see finally in December 1961, India military invaded Goa, Daman and Diu, where regardless of the odds, I told you the first British started their banks, the trade on the banks of river Hooghly, and established forts in the year 1651, and these forts were garrisoned. Now what do you mean by garrison? Garrison means a permanent military post. That means they have surrounded military people for the protection, right? For the protection of the factory, and got the permission from the Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb to trade without paying taxes against an annual payment. So they had a permission. They got the permission from the Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb to trade without paying the taxes. That was one of the finest thing, that they have got the permission to pay to do the business, to do the trade without paying the taxes against an annual payment. Now comes the expansion of the British rule between the 1715 CEE and 1857 CE. 1757 and 1857. So we'll just see over here that what things were being done. By this time, the East India Company was in a race to earn more and more money as per the order passed in Bengal. Only the company availed the benefit of tax-free trading, because you know that they have recently here in this page it was given to you the Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb. He had given the permission to do the trade without paying the taxes. So what happened over here in this? they have the company availed the benefit. They had availed the benefit that of tax-free trading. However, many officers who were engaged in private trade did not pay the taxes as well. As a result, the income generated from the tax collection in Bengal reduced, which in turn was opposed by the Nawab of Bengal, Murshid Quli Khan. That we all know that the income from the tax, definitely it will be reduced, because if you are going to pay the tax, if you are doing business, if you are doing trading activities, definitely some tax has to be given to the government. But if that tax has to be reduced, if that tax is not being paid, that means that much income is going to, we are going to lose that much income, right? So what happened? The Nawab of Bengal had opposed that Murshid Ali Khan, he had opposed to, and why? Because the income generated from the tax, the income which was generated from the tax in Bengal reduced. That was a disadvantage of the Bengal, that they had gaining the income from the tax. Now they had reduced. That was totally reduced. This dispute kept on recurring even during the time of Ali Vardi Khan. After Ali Vardi Khan, his son Siraj ud Dola took charge and he got involved into a major battle with the British. Now, do you know Ali Vardi Khan? Who was he was Ali Vardi Khan. Yes, here it is given to you. This dispute kept on recurring even during the time of Ali Vardi Khan. We'll just have a look of it. Ali Vardi Khan, who was it, how he was looking in the PowerPoint presentation. See, you can look over here. Ali Vardi Khan, he was the Nawab of Bengal from 740 to 1756. He toppled the Nasri dynasty of the Nawab and took the power of a Nawab. So you can just see that how he was looking there, how he was the king and the Nawab of Bengal, right? He was the Nawab of Bengal in which year? In the year 1740 to 1756. And he toppled the Nasri. What do you mean topple? That means he to push or throw over, overturn, right? He overthrow means he had pushed the dynasty, Nasri dynasty of the Nawabs, and took the power of a Nawab. So how he was looking, you can just see the Nawab, only the palace, he's standing over here, right? So after the Ali Vardi Khan, his successor Siraj ud Dola, his son, that I told you during the battle of Plassey, how he was looking, you can just see over here. He was the Nawab of Bengal in the year 1756, and the end of his reign marked the start of British East India Company rule over the Bengal and later almost entire South Asia. You can just see Siraj ud Dola, he was son of the Ali Vardi Khan, right? So he was he was the successor of Ali Vardi Khan, and so he had also reigned to start the British East India Company, and almost had been ruled over to not only to the Bengal but almost the entire South Asia. Yes, students, I just now I showed you the Siraj ud Dola. I introduced you about. He is one of the son of the Ali Vardi Khan, and we'll just see the Battle of Plassey. Siraj ud Dola became the Nawab of Bengal in the year 1756. He had an overwhelming influence over the British. The British helped the competitors of Siraj ud Dola by conspiring against him so that he would not remain on the throne of Bengal. So basically, he became the Nawab of Bengal in the year 1756, and he had an overwhelming influence over the British. He had a very much overwhelming. Now, what do you mean by overwhelming? What do you mean by overwhelming? extreme, right? Extreme influence over the British. The British helped the competitors of Sirajud-Dowlah by conspiring against him so that he would not remain. He told that he should not remain on the throne of Bengal. The Britishers had the competitors. The Britishers were even the competitors of the French, but now he won. Now the British helped the competitors of Sirajud-Dowlah by conspiring him so that he would not remain on the throne of Bengal. There were frequent conflicts with the British merchants regarding the payment of taxes. They were having a lot of conflicts regarding the payment. They were not paying the taxes because you all know earlier also, here it is given to Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb. He had given the permission for without tax you can trade now, but they had the things permission was given, but now it is basically seen it over here that the British merchants, they were having a big conflicts regarding the taxes because we all know the income had reduced, because the income which was generated to the taxes, it was now not possible for them. So when the British merchants failed to pay the taxes which were applicable to both India and foreign merchants, the situations came to a boil. Situation comes means a boil means you all know that if water is boiling at, right, how it is boiling, the bubbles will come out. So at that point of time, the situations came to a boil. The situation was very, very much worst. Now they couldn't resist it. So he ordered the British should not fortify the factory. He ordered that the British should not fortify the factory, pay the taxes as per the rules, and trade as per the terms and conditions. So what he told, that he ordered that the British should not fortify the factory. What do you mean by fortify? What is the meaning of fortify? That means to increase or to strengthen and secure, or to impart a strength, right? To impart strength to foreign. He ordered that the British should not fortify the factory. He should not impart the strength to the different people. Pay the taxes as per the rule and trade as per the terms and conditions. This provocation was enough for Siraj to opt for the war, and he succeeded in expelling the British from Calcutta. The British counterattacked under the leadership of Robert Clive. Clive bribed Mir Jafar, the commander-in-chief of Siraj-ud-Dowlah. So basically what happened? The Britishers had a counter-attack. They had been a counter-attack under whose leadership? Under the leadership of Robert Clive. Now they had been a counter-attack under the leadership of the Robert Clive, and the Clive had been bribed. Clive had been bribed by Mir Jafar, who was the commander-in-chief of Siraj-ud-Dowlah. Now we all know that counter-attack. What do you mean by counter-attack? An attack which is made in response to one by an opponent, right? An attack in response. You can also say the counter-attack to defense against the attack, right? To defense against the forces which have been made. So they had made a counter-attack, and under the leadership of, under whose leadership they had made a counter-attack? Under the leadership of Robert Clive. But Clive was bribed by Mir Jafar. They had been given a bribery by Mir Jafar, the commander-in-chief. Now who was in the commander-in-chief? And he was the commander-in-chief of Siraj-ud-Dowlah. That means the Mir Jafar was also having a contact of the Britishers. That they were given, Clive had given a bribe to this person to tell all the things to him. So what happened? The commander-in-chief, with a promise to confer the throne of Bengal to him and convince him to join their side. So Robert Clive was very, very much smart. He had given a bribe to the commander-in-chief of Siraj-ud-Dowlah, who was Mir Jafar, and he had a promise, he made a promise that he will be the next throne, he will sit on the throne where Siraj-ud-Daulah is sitting at presently. Yes, he will be sitting on the throne of Bengal. He had promised him. So what happened in his mind? He thought that, okay, if I will be the throne, he will be the throne of Bengal, sit on the throne of Bengal. That will be very, very much powerful. So with this help, Robert Clive defeated and murdered Siraj-ud-Daulah in the Battle of Plassey. So he had a very, very we can say it that he had a very thought, not a good thought of acquiring Bengal, because he had given a bribe. That was not good. This was the first war by the Company in India, which marked the beginning of the British rule in India. Thus, this war is considered to be a turning point in the history of India. So what they were not paying the taxes. They wanted to pay the taxes, but Aurangzeb had already given the orders and permission for not paying the taxes, but now they had to pay the taxes. So that was one of the big question for them. And now what happened? If they had a counter attack with the leadership of Robert Clive, but Clive, we had already bribed, he had already given money to Mir Jafar. Yes, Mir Jafar, I told you that he was already given the money. For what? As he was the commander-in-chief, he had given the money to sit on the throne and reveal all the secrets to him. And he was given a promise. What promise he had been given? That he will sit on the throne of Bengal. And this way, the Siraj-ud-Daulah was being murdered in the Battle of Plassey. We'll just have a look of the Battle of Plassey and and Mir Jafar, how he was looking and how he had done an ungrateful thing to Siraj-ud-Daulah, being an commander-in-chief of him. You can just see over here the Battle of Plassey. It took place on the banks of the river Hooghly, about 150 kilometers north of Calcutta, now Nadia district in West Bengal. So the Battle of Plassey was a remarkable thing in the history of India, right? You can also see Mir Jafar, how he was looking there. He was the commander-in-chief of who? He was the commander-in-chief of Siraj-ud-Daulah. Yes, but he was bribed by, Mir Jafar was bribed by Robert Clive. So Mir Jafar was a military general who became the first independent Nawab of Bengal of the British East India Company. Yes, but by bribery, by the wrongful act, he had become the Nawab of Bengal. Because he was promised by the Robert Clive that definitely he would give that throne of Bengal to him, right? Now the next topic after the Battle of Plassey, we have the Battle of Buxar. But before that, some things to know is there upside. That is, do you know the Plassey got its name? The original name of Palassi, the trees of Palash, Khakra, the followers of Palash tree, are saffron in color and are used in making the colors for Holi. So it's by the inception of how the Plassey got its name of it, right? Now the Battle of Buxar, the next Battle of Buxar, and the last topic of this chapter. As promised, the East India Company appointed Mir Jafar. Now we all know Mir Jafar became the Nawab of Bengal. How? We all know that he had been bribed by Robert Clive and he had got a throne of Bengal. Robert Clive also went back to England. With the passage of time, Mir Jafar became hostile towards the British. The British Company decided to replace him with his son-in-law Mir Qasim, Mir Qasim was an efficient, disciplined and a clever ruler. The problem arose between Nawab and the company on account of non-payment of taxes. What the problem arose? The same problem arose that between the non-payment, because that same problem definitely it will arise. Why the same problem will arise? Because the thing was that he had been bribed. Mir Jafar was bribed by the Robert Clive. So that taxes problem would definitely is going to be the same only, because at that point of time also the taxes problem was not solved. Yes, at that point of time the problem of taxes was not solved. So what happened? Which ultimately brought the forces face to face with each other. The face to face they have gone with each other. Then in 1763, Mir Qasim was defeated by the company, but he escaped. He reorganized his army along with the forces of Nawab of Oudh, Shah ud Daula and Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II. Right? So what happened? As they had promised, the promised East India Company appointed, as we all know, he had appointed the Mir Jafar, the Nawab of Bengal, and with that passage of time, the Robert Clive also went back to England. Now, with the passage of time, Mir Jafar became hostile towards the British. Hostile, what do you mean by hostile? They can also say that is ill will. Yes, you can see that belonging or appropriate to an enemy. He became hostile, right? He became very much sudden change came in him. And what happened? The British decided to replace him, or the company decided to replace him with his son-in-law. Whose son-in-law? The Mir Jafar's son-in-law, Mir Qasim. He was an efficient, disciplined and a clever ruler. The problem arose between the Nawab and the company on account of the non-payment of taxes. That we all know that the problem had been arose. The same problem was arising between the non-payment. So the battles was only fought due to the main reason of the problem was non-payment of the taxes, because if the taxes would have been paid, the income definitely would have been generated, but the taxes was not paid. So that was one of the basic disadvantage. So in 1763, Mir Qasim was defeated by the company, but he had escaped it. Their combined forces met the company forces at the Buxar in 1764. The British East India Company won the war, and all of a sudden Bengal, a word now known as Lucknow, and Mughal Empire was under their control. So everything was under their control now, and Robert Clive was sent to India to take control of this situation. Again, when he went and he had formed a company, and Robert Clive thought that now everything is good. So what happened? So again, this changes had occurred over here, that the Mir Qasim took the charge, because as he was the son-in-law of Mir Jafar, he was very clever and he was very disciplined. So to handle this situation, everything, and again the same problem of non-payment of taxes, the British East India Company decided, and he had won the war, and again suddenly Robert Clive was sent to India to take the control of this situation. That's how the East India Company, a trading company, emerged as a political power in the subcontinent of India. So this is one of the basic thing, the last concept of this chapter, the Battle of Buxar. We'll just have a look of also the different we can just see the Battle of Buxar was having the same problem for the non-payment of taxes, right? The whole chapter basically has been based upon the different historical importance. Firstly, the explorers coming to the different people, the Britishers, the Dutch, the French came to India, how they had ruled over India, how the Portuguese had ruled over India, and lastly how the different battles have occurred. So students, I hope that you have understood this chapter very much nicely, and the exercise part of it I am going to give you in the PDF form. PDF, you are going to write the whole question and answer. Here only the exercise, fill in the blanks, and exercise 4-5 questions I have given, but in the PDF there are more. So you can, in the whole PDF, you are going to write it in the notebook in a very neat and clean handwriting, right? Whenever we meet again, I'll check it and then it will be very much good. Till then, goodbye and take care.